Our first set of notes for the year are about sequences. So our first vocabulary term is a sequence. What is a sequence? It is a list of numbers or a collection of objects that follow a consistent pattern. So an example of a list of numbers that follows a consistent pattern is 10, 12, 14, 16, and so on. Okay, this has a pattern because 10, 12, 14, and 16, to get to the next number, we have to add 2. So that's our pattern. We're adding 2 each time. That's what makes this a sequence, is that we're consistently adding 2. The next vocabulary term is term, which is a number in a sequence. So we have 10, 12, 14, 16. That is our sequence. Any number in that sequence can be a term. So 12 is a term, 14 is a term, 16 is a term. Any number in that sequence is a term. When we're talking about the term number, that would be the number of the term. So we have 10, 12, 14, 16. Same sequence. This is term number 1, term number 2, term number 3, term number 4. Okay, there's 4 terms in our sequence. This is an example of term number 3. That is a term number for that sequence. Okay, our initial value, the starting value, or the first term in the sequence. In our same sequence, we have 10, 12, 14, 16, and so on. Our first term or initial value is 10. So this is our initial value, because that's term number 1. All right. So then these next 3 vocabulary words are talking about the notation. So this is how we're going to write the different terms in the sequence. So the notation for the nth term, where n is a number or any term in the sequence. So n is supposed to be any number. It's a variable, so it's kind of like x. Okay, so if we have 10, 12, 14, 16, okay, then we'll have 10 is our first term, so that would be a sub 1. 12 is our second term. 14 is our third term. And 16 is our fourth term. Okay, so here n is any number in this sequence. So that's where we're going to put the term number for the sequence. Okay, and if we kept going, if we had any other terms, we would have a sub n. That's a hypothetical term somewhere down the line of our sequence. Okay, because our sequence continues on forever. The previous term of a sequence is a sub n minus 1. So that's this n minus 1 is on the bottom of a. So we say a sub n minus 1. That's talking about the previous term of a sequence. So we have 10, 12, 14, 16, and so on. Then we'll have, let's say 14 is a sub 3. Okay? But we want to see what's before 14. So if 14 is a sub n, but we know that 14 is the third term, so we put 3 there, then what is a sub n minus 1, which is the term before that, a sub n minus 1. That's talking about the term before that. So what would a sub n minus 1 be? It will be a sub 2, because 3 minus 1 is 2. Okay, so a sub n minus 1 just means the term before the term that we're talking about. Okay, the next one, a sub 5, is the 5th term of the sequence. So if we use our same sequence, 10, 12, 14, 16. Then we need to find the fifth term. So we have 10, 12, 14, 16. That's only 4 terms. So if we use the pattern, 10 plus 2 is 12, 12 plus 2 is 14, 14 plus 2 is 16, 16 plus 2, we can actually find the fifth term, 18. So that's going to be our fifth term, which is a sub 5. Or you can write it a sub 5 equals 18. And that's part of our examples at the bottom. Next are our examples. The directions for these examples, we have determined if the following sequences have addition, subtraction, multiplication, or division pattern, and what is the pattern. Okay, so here we have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So I know that 2 plus 2 is 4, and 4 plus 2 is 6, plus 2 is 8, plus 2 is 10. So we're adding 2 each time. Okay. The next one, 20, 10, 5, 2.5, 1.25. So these numbers are going down, but they're not subtracting. Because we start with 20, and then if we were subtracting, we would subtract 10, but then if we subtract 10 again, we would get 0. So that's not subtracting. So it has to be another one which is decreasing. So addition is increasing, and so is multiplication. And subtracting would be decreasing. And so is division. Okay. So, since these are decreasing, but they're not subtracting, they must be dividing. And if you want to double check what you're dividing by, you can go ahead and take this second term and subtract, we're dividing, second term and divide by the first term. Okay? And then you can see that for each of these, we are dividing by 2. Dividing by 2. Okay. Next one. We have negative 10, negative 20, negative 30, negative 40, negative 50. This looks like we're increasing, but it's actually getting more negative. So it's actually decreasing. And since we seem to be counting by tens, it looks like we're decreasing by 10 or subtracting 10 each time. Okay. The next one is 1, 10, 20, 1,000, 10,000. I said 20. 1, 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000. So each time we're adding a 0. And if you remember from your multiplication rules, every time you add a 0, you're actually multiplying by 10. So here we're multiplying by 10. That's our pattern. The next examples say identify the given term. So here we have all of our terms. We know from the vocabulary that our term number is going to be the number at the bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and label each of my terms so I know which term number is which. So here we're looking for a sub 2, which is our second term, and I can see from here, my labeling, my second term is 10. Same thing here. We have S sub 4. So S is a different name for the sequence, but just because it has a different name doesn't mean we do something different. So we have S sub 1, S sub 2, S sub 3, S sub 4, S sub 5. Okay, it's asking for S sub 4, which would be 50, because that's the fourth term.